All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we are going to get into talking about the Sunday night game, recapping that between the Bears and the Texans. Low-scoring game here, I might add, but there are some things I wanted to touch upon with it. So the Texans were 6.5-point favorites in this game, and of course the Bears covered. And going into the game last night, I was like, yeah, the Falcons are going to either cover. I'm not going to be surprised with whatever happens. And, of course, the Falcons ended up winning. So I finished with 6 wins in the spread pool this week. And this game, I was hoping that I would have been able to win it, but ended up not happening. So first quarter, got off to a strong start because both teams on their possessions. The Texans had 2 possessions in the first quarter. The Bears only had 1. They scored. So the Texans, their first possession, it was 4 minutes 40 seconds of time possession. They went down the field. Joe Mixon had a 16-yard run in this. On this drive, Kymie Fairbairn had a huge game, 56-yard field goal to start off the game. Then the Bears, they answered a 6.5-minute drive, 11 plays, 42 yards. Caleb Williams, a couple of nice plays to DeAndre Carter, 14 yards, and then another 12. Then hit DJ Moore for 19 yards. Cairo Santos then later in the drive hit a 53-yard field goal to make it 3-3. Then the Texans answered, almost 4 minutes of time possession, 8 plays, 77 yards. Stroud connected with Nico Collins for 18 yards. He connected with Stover for 18 yards, another 18 yards by Tank Dell on a running play. Eventually, on 2nd and 24 from the Chicago 28, because there was an unnecessary roughness call on Nico Collins that set them back. Nico Collins then from 28 yards out scored a touchdown to make it 10-3 Texans. Then the Bears punted on their next drive. The Texans, so their first 3 drives of the game were all scoring. Stroud connected with Stephon Diggs for 21 yards, then another 18 in Nico Collins, and then Kymie Fairbairn later kicked a 47-yard field goal, which I thought was interesting because it was fourth and 1. I'm surprised that they didn't go for it. But anyways, that made it a 10-point game, which I think I forgot to bring this up with the Eagles. So they went for. Actually, no, I think I did bring it up. I might have not. But it was when they went for it on 4th down when they should have just kicked the field goal earlier in the game. I don't know why they didn't do that, but the Texans did it. So then both teams exchanged punts. Then the Bears put together a touchdown drive. They got good field position. The punt was not very good. 8 plays, 49 yards, 3 minutes, 10 seconds of time possession. Khalil Herbert scored a rushing touchdown from 2 yards out. So that made it 13-10. But then the Texans got into Fairbairn's range, and he kicked a 59-yard field goal, which there was a penalty right before that. I think there was a false start. Then Stroud threw an incomplete pass. But, yeah, Fairbairn hit a 59-yarder. So that made it 16-10 at the half. Then all punts for most of the third quarter. Then Caleb Williams threw a pick. Stingley picked that off, and they turned that into a field goal drive. Fairbairn from 53 yards out. So, yeah, like I said, he had a day in this game. Then Caleb Williams threw his second interception. Both teams exchanged punts. Then it looked like the Texans were going to put this game away. But then Cam Akers ended up fumbling the ball at the Bears 4, and the Bears got the ball back. They turned that into a scoring drive to make it 19-13. Santos from 54 yards out. So, yeah, that made it 19-13. The Texans punted, and then the Bears, on the first play, Caleb Williams hits Roma Dunze for 27 yards, but then no gain on the next play, incomplete to Gerald Everett. Then he got sacked, had a 1-yard scramble, and then tried to hit a Dunze on 4th and 17. And that was it. So Caleb Williams, again, no touchdowns in this game. 23 of 37, 174 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. He was their leading rusher. He had 44 yards rushing. DeAndre Swift, 14 carries for 18 yards. So he has not gotten off to a good start. The Bears' run blocking is not. The offensive line just has not been good for the Bears. DJ Moore had 6 receptions for 53 yards. Roma Dunze, who was questionable going into the game, he ended up playing. He only had 2 for 33. DeAndre Carter was more involved with Keenan Allen being ruled out. He had 3 receptions for 32 yards. Cole Kmet had 4 for 27. Swift had 4 for 24. Kevin Byard was the player that recovered the fumble. The Bears had 3 sacks in this game. Cairo Santos, was 2 for 2 on field goals, 1 for 1 on extra points. And then for the Texans, C.J.Stroud, 23 of 36, 260 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions. The Texans ran the ball for 75 yards. Joe Mixon late in the game got hurt, and there was talks about why the refs didn't call the hip drop tackle, penalty on the hip drop tackle that happened on that play. Because even the broadcaster, even Mike Tirico and Chris Collinsworth were talking about it. They were talking about all the indicators on that play, and it should have been called because Mixon ended up leaving with an ankle injury. But he did come back in the game, but the refs didn't call it. And it is tough on the refs to try to, call this. I mean, because you really got to be paying attention, and they missed that one. But the NFL is getting some heat because it's like you're implementing this rule and it's not being called. So Nico Collins had a big game, 8 receptions for 135 yards back to the game, and also that touchdown. Stephon Diggs only had 4 for 37. Joe Mixon 3 for 25. Dalton Schultz 2 for 21. Akers had that costly fumble. But yeah, a couple of picks. Stingley had one, and Kamari Lassiter had another one as well. And the Texans, they had 7 sacks in this game. Kaimi Fairbairn was 4 for 4 on field goals and 1 for 1 on extra points. So yeah, it was a defensive battle. Starting off with the Texans. The Texans are very good. I don't know how I'm going to do my top 5 this week. I really have no idea. The Texans are still in the top 5. There are some teams that might have fallen out of it this week. But the Texans, I think, are, for me, they might have moved up, honestly. Even though, it was a defensive battle. But yeah, they look good. Nico Collins looks good. Although, the Bears defense did kind of, shut them down in the second half. They still were able to get the win. But I guess really the main thing is, to be honest, talking about the Bears, the offensive line is a problem. Like I said, 7 sacks on Caleb Williams. It was a problem last week against the Titans, and it was a problem this week against the Texans. I mean, they gotta figure something out there. I don't know what they can do, but Caleb Williams is getting beat up back there. He took some big hits in this game, and you don't want to see your young quarterback getting knocked around like that. You don't, because that could also lead to injuries. So that definitely is one takeaway I had. But also the other thing too is the Bears defense is really good. This is a good defense. They're picking up right where they left off last year. I mean, this is a very good Texans team that they were going up against, and they held them to 19 points. Now, it's just unfortunate that their offense couldn't get anything going. But, Bears defense is legit, people. We got to start paying attention to that. So once this offense gets rolling, and I hope it does, the Bears are going to be a problem. And I said this before the year started, and, a lot of people probably said the same thing. This was going to be a team that was going to start off slow. Caleb Williams is going to start off slow. He's not going to be great right off the bat. And, some of the throws that he made in this game, the interceptions weren't good, but then he made some plays where you're like, hey, that's, the talent's there. So as my camera's not working here, so I want to, well, not really, it's not working, but it's glitching out a little bit. They're going to put, I feel like they're going to put it together. They're going to put it together. I mean, you hope that, the offensive line could improve as we move along here in this young season, because it just hasn't been great. And that was one of the concerns going into the year, was the offensive line. And it just, these couple games have not been great. So, I think if they could figure that out, because also it's impacting the running game too. I mean, the Bears, every time Swift had the ball, I just told you his stats, 14 carries for 18 yards. He could not get anything going on the ground. And you need a running game, too, to balance out this offense. Can't have Caleb Williams throwing the ball a bunch of times with no running game. So, but you also got to get Keenan Allen back as well. So, but, you know what? The Bears are 1-1. They stole that game last week from Tennessee. They could very easily be 0-2 right now, but they're 1-1, and they take on the Colts next week, who did not look great in Lambeau against the Packers with no Jordan Love. So they could definitely win that game, but it's going to be tough. I mean, they got some issues. So Yeah, let me know what you guys think, though, about this game. What were some of your takeaways from it? Very low-scoring game. Again, it got off to a good start, but, yeah, it just the game kind of slowed down. But you know what? Guess you got to appreciate these defensive battles at times, because in this league now with all offense, it's nice to see. For some people, for them it's nice to see defensive battles like the one that we saw, because these are two good defenses. So, but yeah, that's basically it for the show for today. Thank you guys for tuning in. We will continue to recap Week 2 in the NFL. There's a bunch of games that I still haven't gotten to that we will get to tomorrow. We'll get to the Giants game, of course, but there's some other games that I didn't get to that I want to get to. The Buccaneers beating the Lions, the Jags losing. As well, I wanted to talk about some of the 0-2 teams. Well, all the 0-2 teams, and if whose seasons are over, whose seasons aren't. And some other games as well that we didn't get to that I'll cover. But yeah, another week in the NFL has come and gone. We are now on our way to Week 3, but we will continue to talk about Week 2 tomorrow, like I said. So, but my thing is injuries, man. It stinks. That's really all I could say. I mean, I could say a bunch of other words that I'm not going to say on here, but it's just. That's what ruins the season. And also, like, when it comes to fantasy, too, like, it's fun to do fantasy, but when your team starts getting ravaged by injuries, it's just not fun anymore. You're like, why do you even bother setting your lineup? But it's still early. Some of these guys at some point will be back. It's going to be some time. They'll be back for the stretch run. So, yeah, but it's unfortunate that, injuries continue to, plague these NFL seasons. So, yeah, that is all the time that we have for today. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure to check out all the other shows. Give the other shows some love, like I always say. And, yeah, so until next time, I'm Kenneth Gruenfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Take care.